Hello, this is Postdoc Chronicles week number 74, and right here, right now, you're seeing Pokemon Sword, which is released today, November 15, 2019. So I had a personal constraint on myself. I told myself that if my first paper on high energy physics will not be published yet, we submitted it to like physics letters B last May this year. I told myself not to buy the Pokemon game yet, but then here we are because 2 days ago we received a letter from physics letters B, basically saying that the paper is accepted aside from a single figure that the reviewer really wanted. So for all intents and purposes, I think it's already accepted because we put the figure that he wanted. So we'll talk about more about that later, but let's focus on the Pokemon Sword, which I got as a treat for myself for getting that paper published. But anyway, so Pokemon Sword is the latest in the long running series of Pokemon that began, I think, around 1996. So I've played every generation of Pokemon. This is the eighth generation now, the current, and I believe Pokemon is now around, I believe, more than 20 years old because it started like 1996. We are now in 2019, so it has gone a long way. I remember the first time I encountered Pokemon was in elementary when we watched the Friday cartoons on, I believe it was on GMA, and usually during that time, we were very used to animes that are being tagalized. But yeah, Pokemon is in English, and I never encountered the game until I was in high school. So during high school, no one actually had a Game Boy. Someone had a Game Boy, but there was no Pokemon in it. But there were guys who were playing around with emulators, and what they would usually do is we have this floppy disk. You remember those floppy disk when we were in high school, and then they would save the emulator there, and then we would go to like the computer houses where you can rent computers and then play Pokemon there. I haven't really tried make it work. So I had a friend in high school, JP Adyong. Yeah, actually gave me like a floppy disk with a Pokemon, I believe, Gold or maybe earlier inside, and then I attempted, every time I go to the computer place, I put the floppy disk in there. It doesn't work, so I end up like playing Red Alert 2 or something like that. But yeah, but instead during like elementary, I remember we didn't have the video game, but actually made this like a pocket notebook. My friend Wilhelm Marino can is a testament to this. I made like a pocket notebook. It's like a choose your own adventure style. So on different pages, there are like maps. I believe I called it like Pokemon 2000 or something like that, depending on what year I made it. And it's basically, it's like you're a character. You create a character, and then you have like starter Pokemons, and then for these starter Pokemons, I created like some sort of cards, and the way you battle is you have like a list of moves that is controlled by a coin toss or a dice, and then you move forward. So there's like it's like a how you call this, snakes and ladders, something like that. So you move your character, and then when you reach here, there's an encounter with a Pokemon. So I bring out the card of the wild encounter, and then you play it with coins or in dice. And in fact, in high school we also did that. We had like some cards, we made some cards, we drew Pokemon on them, and then we do like heads and tails, two moves, and then one move is greater than the other, depending on the coin, the toss of the coin. And in fact, we made like paper badges, assigned to someone who is like the water badge gym leader, the grass gym leader, and stuff like that. Yeah, it was very cool. But it wasn't until college when I played my first Pokemon, because in college that's when I got my Game Boy Advance, my very first gaming console. I actually bought it using the DOST scholarship money. But yeah, so in Game Boy Advance, the first Pokemon game that I played was Pokemon Red, care of Brian King, my classmate and friend in when I was taking BS Physics in Silliman University. And yeah, I played that game to death, Pokemon Red, and then eventually I was able to play Pokemon Gold, which was lent to me by another colleague in college, Dante Manipon, and then eventually after that, I was able to afford, the subsequent later games in Pokemon. But yeah, so going now to the latest, this is a very important Pokemon game right here, because it is the first mainline Pokemon that is playable on the large TV screen on the console, because usually Pokemons are restricted to handheld. So you can argue that Switch is also a handheld, but yeah, but Switch is also a console, right? So that's why I think that's one of the main reasons why it's kind of divided, the fans, because there is a lot of expectation on Game Freak's part, because this is going to be a console Pokemon game, and then it should be, huge and stuff like that. And a lot of people were let down. It's not the jump, from, for example, let's say Legend of Zelda. Their jump from the previous console going to the Switch, the Breath of the Wild, it was like magnificent. It was a huge leap. And then also Mario with their Super Mario Odyssey, the improvement was very huge. This one, it's not, they relied on existing formula, and to make matters worse, for me the biggest gripe is that not all Pokemon are available. So I believe, like, depending on how many Pokemons they introduce here, there's already like more than 1,000 Pokemon available. It would be nice, if they are all available in this game. So the thing is, every Pokemon game, every time they iterate the Pokemon, and every time they add new Pokemons, the latest generation usually contains all the Pokemon that came before, right? So this is the only Pokemon game where it does not, I believe it's got more than half, right? Like, in fact, there's even this meme, that they compare, what's the game name of the guy, Masuda. They compare Masuda with Thanos, because like Thanos, killed half of the population, Masuda, and then people say, don't be offensive. Even Thanos only killed 50%, and then Masuda removed like a majority. But yeah, so the new mechanic here that they're introducing, the new gimmick, so to speak, is the Dynamax. So it's sort of like think of it like a combination of a Mega Evolution and a very hyper Z move, right? And you can only use it, I believe, for 3 turns or something like that. I still haven't gotten far. I tried the first few minutes of it, but yeah, it looks like a promising Pokemon. But I believe they still lack the experience to make it into a really console experience. So I believe they're still shackled by their handheld experiences. They still have this handheld mentalities with them. So maybe that's the reason why. But still, being a Pokemon fan, I'm like obliged, or even if I wouldn't, even if like had my paper not been received, and then I won't be able to buy this, I would have bought it eventually, down the line. But yeah, here we are. So I'm now able to play it. So we'll see if how it goes. I believe like the competitive scene will still be cool and all that, but yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'm really excited to play this game. I heard it's short, but yeah. I don't mind, because on my Switch I usually play handheld. And before we move on, I just remembered, one of the things I also don't like about this game is it actually, I believe, I'm not sure how, but it incorporates some stuff from Pokemon Go. It's something Pokemon Go. I don't play that. I don't find that appealing at all. But yeah, so I believe this game would be more promising, you can get more out of this game if you're playing Pokemon Go, which unfortunately I'm not, and I don't like plan on getting into that. Okay, but anyway, yeah, I'm really excited to play this. But before we move on, this week I also got this thing also in here. It's now playing Pokemon, the red version. That's a Game Boy Advance. But this a beast emulation machine, RG350, and it's even more powerful than this one is the GPI. I've talked about this at length before. But so the GPI is an emulation powered by Raspberry Pi 0W with a RetroPie installed. This one is running on Open Dingook, so this one is easier to install. It has more buttons. It has like dual analog sticks, left and right. They're also pressable. There's like L2 and R2 buttons. It's powered by a Type C, and then there's a HDMI. Right now, it's not yet supported, but eventually it will. And it's also has HD rumble. So like I tried Vigilante here. Vigilante is like an offense, my favorite PS1 game. Like this is probably the best place to play Vigilante for me, personally, right? Currently, so I got this, and I got this as a complement to this one. So I still play this. This is really very cool. But I got this because there are like a lot of shmup games that are in tate mode, in horizontal mode, that are playable here. But of course, you can't, like, it's not a horizontal mode, and they're still not yet out for the Switch. The Switch is the best place to play them if they come out eventually. But since they're not yet, for example, things like Donpachi, Batsugan, so you can actually play them like doing like that in a vertical mode, tate mode, and then this becomes your control, and then you press this for the moves and stuff. But yeah, here we are. So like in here on my GPI, currently we have a Pokemon Blue playing. It's like the very first Pokemon, and then this is the remake of the very first Pokemon Red on the Game Boy Advance, and now on the TV right here. Wait for it, Pokemon Sword. So here you go, the three of them. All right. But anyway, going to Postdoc now. So like I mentioned, I was able to buy this because early this week we finally got the reply from the referee of our revision. So if you calculate, the first time we submitted the paper was around end of May 2019, and then we got a review. We did a revision, and then the final reply was like last week. It said, yeah, it can be accepted, but you need to add a plot. So this particular plot, we in the earliest draft of the paper we actually included this plot, but then Jong decided not to include it because of this thing. I've talked about this like before earlier Postdoc Chronicles ago about the look elsewhere effect. You know that if you have it's a difference between signal peaks that are predicted by the theory, for example the gauge bosons, versus peaks that are not predicted by the theory, for example the Higgs boson. Okay, so in our case, the peaks that we're looking at, the Bino peaks, it falls on the latter case, just like the Higgs boson is not predictable. So the way you measure the significance is not as straightforward as just looking at the localized peak, you know. So that's why we added in our paper that, yeah, this is our estimate of the significance, but since it's not predicted by the theory, then this is not, we don't like, we don't consider the in-depth, the in-depth, what do you call this, treatment of the look elsewhere effect. So it's just a very simple statistical study, and we added that caveat there. But since the referee wanted that figure, he said it can be accepted, but I want the figure of the significance versus different squark masses. So we added it, and then we also like introduced a lot of errors. So we said even if our background is like, even if we introduce 50% error to our background, because our background is of course generated, the sensitivity is still greater or still better than the most sensitive search of Atlas according to Checkmate. So that's like the selling point of our paper. We look at a specific topology, and it turns out that looking at that specific topology and then you compare it to the current searches, considering the constraints on the Stout-Soucy, ours has a higher exclusion potential. Okay, so that's it. And then so that's the good news. This week there's also like a bit of a bad news that I just learned, when I, good thing we learned this early. I was like processing my I was doing some inquiries regarding my visa extension because my contract in South Africa actually ends after my visa expires. I don't, so it has something to do with I got my visa in the Philippines around March 2018, I think, and then I was supposed to start March, but then there were still a lot of paperwork to do, so I wasn't able to come here until May 2018. So that's like the start of the count of the contract. It expires April 30, 2020. However, my visa expires March 2020, right? So there's a mismatch. So I was inquiring, and I was supposed to extend it for another year because Deepak told me that he had a fund to extend me for yet another year. And of course, we're doing this extension even though I'm already almost done with my 2 years of postdoc. I only have like around 5 months left, so around half a year left. But after that, the 2 year contract is up. So Deepak said, but we're still gonna do your qualification task, so that eventually, after the qualification task is done, I will become an official author, part of the author list of the Atlas collaboration. It will really be a huge boost, to the name of the, for example, University of the Philippines, Diliman, and the Philippines in general, because Atlas publishes a lot of paper every year, and if my name is there, and then UP could be like, oh, look how many papers we publish every year. Their name will now be affiliated with Atlas. But before I can do that, I have to undergo a 1 year qualification task, and hence we need to extend. So Deepak had a fund ready. However, I was inquiring on my visa inquiries, like the guys assigned for the postdocs. I was like, "Hi guys, I wanted to renew my visa. It already expires this March. I wanted to renew it for another year." They said, "Oh, how come you're renewing it for another year? You're done April 2020." And then I'm like, Deepak will extend me for another year from another of his funding. And they're like, what funding? So I showed them, I looked at Deepak's email, I told them, and then they said, no, this doesn't work. So the thing is, Deepak is willing to fund me. However, there's like a technical conflict because the source of my funding is called the NRF, National Research Foundation. They actually have a clause in the contract that says that if my postdoc, after my 2 years of funding from them, I shouldn't be able to enjoy any other funding that comes from NRF. So I didn't know this before, but when we check the funding that Deepak was supposed to use on me, it's actually affiliated to NRF. Okay, it will like pass through NRF, and so it cannot be done. They said no, it's not possible. So either you look for another funding or not this one. It's not possible. It conflicts with the contract. So now I asked Deepak, and Deepak is like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any other fund. So I went back. I told my colleagues in the Philippines, our director, Sir Ian, if maybe I can look for another funding, because it's like, it would be bad if like I can't find any funding from the Philippines. And here's Deepak, like not even a Filipino, not even, like he's not even affiliated with the Philippines, but he's willing to fund me 1 year, if not for the technicalities that arose. He's willing to use his money on me to fund me for 1 year. And so it would be sad, if I go knocking on the doors of the Philippines and then they won't be able to fund me for yet another year. But fortunately, Ian and our director, Sir Garcia, they found the DOST Fisher the DOST grant. So now I'm trying to apply for it. So hopefully, I'm able to submit the application like late November. Kuya Dennis is in Japan. He's doing postdoc in nuclear physics. He said it took him around 2 months to process. So hopefully, if I can submit it like early December. Hopefully, we can get it like maybe I don't know, around January or February. So the plan is here. So right now, this month I will be renewing my visa. My initial schedule was to renew my visa on January, because I thought when I renew the visa they're gonna take the passport with them. But then I just learned yesterday, no, they don't do that. So I'm gonna renew my visa this year, because it has to be renewed 2 months before the expiration, which in my case is March. So I'm renewing it this month, and then maybe it will take. They said it will take around 2 months, to sometimes 3 months. So if I process it this month, so December, January, let's say around February, my new renewal is done. But the thing is that renewal will only be extended for 1 month from the expiry of March up to April 30, because that's the current contract that I have that will support me in Africa is only up to April 30, 2020. But hopefully, if the UST will be able to approve my fund early next year, then I will reapply for an extension for yet another year. So that's the plan, but with the funding from the UST. So I can't tell the visa extension guys that, hey, extend me for 1 year, because I have another fund, because I'm still applying for this DOST one. I still wasn't approved yet. So it's a very good thing, yeah, even though it's a bad news, it's still like the bright side is that it's good. It's nice that we found it early as now, like November 2019. Had we found out about it like early next year, it would have been bad, I would have ended my postdoc after like April 2020. But since we found it a little bit relatively earlier, still November, so there's still time to knock on the UST's doors, and hopefully they can fund me, right? And by the way, also this week I was so I did I revised our paper and then submitted it back to PLB. And I'm also reading who's this Lawrence qualification task, his note on Atlas. So he's already doing his qualification task. Lawrence is a PhD student of Deepak, and so Deepak is in CERN right now. Deepak wanted us to meet with his PhD student. I read his qualification task, and then his note, Atlas note, and then make comments on it. So we're gonna meet now after this. Like I go back to school, we're gonna meet, and then I give my comments on him. So I believe he's probably more expert than me on Atlas, because he's been at it for a long time. Yeah, so I'm gonna give comments on his work. So his work is basically on looking at the difference between electrons that are near a jet or near jets, and versus isolated electrons, because there's this overlap removal done in Atlas, where if an electron is close to a jet, then a jet is discarded, because there's like a different algorithm that constructs jet, and there's a different algorithm that constructs electrons. And then sometimes the jet algorithm would think that the electron is a jet. Sometimes the electron algorithm would think that it's a jet. So sometimes there will be a double counting. So you need to discard one or the other, like sort of manually. So if an electron is like near some jet, then it's probably or then only a single jet, then it's probably isolated. But if it's like near a lot of jets, then it's probably part of some hadronic activity, so it has to be discarded. So the title of his paper is electrons in dense environments in Atlas or in LHC, so dense hadronic environment. So we're gonna meet later, and I'm gonna give him his comments. But anyway, this has been Postdoc Chronicles week number 74. I'll update you if my paper will finally gets accepted and in the final print form. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time on Postdoc Chronicles week number 75. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.